It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Every Tuesday, we answer your questions. You can send us your questions via podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au, or better yet, jump onto happyfamilies.com.au. Press the easy-to-use button where you simply push the button and start talking, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Today, 2 questions, one extremely serious and then the other about the everyday challenges of parenting.
By now, everyone in Australia knows about the tragedy that happened over the weekend at Bondi Junction. You've been doing a lot of media around this.
A lot of interviews, yeah.
Number one question on any parent's mind at this time or in time of tragedy is, how do I talk to my kids? What do I say to help alleviate the anxiety and worry, grief, if it is close to home, and deep sadness that comes at times like this? What do we say?
So I'm going to go back a step, and what I want to really emphasise is that your children don't need to see it. The rolling coverage, even when I've been on the TV and I've just been watching what's happening in the studio, it is traumatising. It is devastating. It's horrific to watch this playing out. It's one thing to hear about it. It's another thing entirely to watch it, and it is frightening. I'm going to say this really clearly, not just about the kids, but about you. If you're listening to the Happy Families podcast right now, give yourself a week away from the news because it is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Just don't check the news sites. Stay away. Give yourself a break. I'm sure that you've felt your anxiety increasing. I'm sure that it just feels absolutely terrifying. Take a break. Be outside. Breathe. Touch the grass. Put the phone away. Do something other than watch the news because it's terrible for you. And it's the same with the kids. They need to know that the world is safe and predictable even when it's not. And the best thing that we can do for them is to keep it away from them as much as possible.
So I guess the next step is, what do we actually say to our kids if they find out? Because the reality is, especially our kids in high school who have got their own phones, it's coming through their feeds, they're seeing it, they're talking about it. How do we actually help alleviate the challenges that are associated with them being aware of stuff that has the capacity to create high levels of anxiety and stress?
Yeah, so I'm going to mention a handful of things. First off, assuming that they have reasonable distance from the tragedy, they're not personally affected. If your kids are seeing this, they're probably going to talk about it. So here's our job as parents. We need to, number one, acknowledge the awfulness of it, and that's not hard. Just say, this is terrible. This is just terrible. Number two, ask them how it's made them feel. Say what you see in terms of feelings. You seem really worried about this. This seems like it's really freaked you out. You seem pretty upset. It seems like you don't want to go out as a result of what you saw. That's if it's affecting them that way. But wherever they're at, just acknowledge what you're seeing. Next thing, ask them if they have any questions. You've obviously seen this. You've obviously heard about it. What questions do you have? Or what are the kids at school saying? Or what has your conversation in your head been? What do you want to talk about in relation to it? You're not trying to be their therapist. You're just asking them what questions they have.
So when a child comes to you with a question that you don't have an answer to, especially at a time like this, and it's creating significant anxiety, what can we as parents do? What do we say in that moment?
I just think you answer really briefly and you answer honestly. You answer in an age-appropriate way. Because they don't need everything. I talk about the fire hose all the time. Don't turn on the fire hose when someone wants a drink. Just give them a glass of water, let them have a sip. And if they need a top up, give it to them because they ask for it. So they don't need to know and hear everything. And the reality is you probably don't know a whole lot. And so don't make up answers. Just say, I don't know. Get comfortable saying, I don't know. I think that's perfectly fine to do. And for me, one of the biggest things that we can do, one of the centrally important things that we can do is reassure the kids that this is unusual. This is staggeringly uncommon. I can think of 2 incidents that have been catastrophically tragic in Sydney, let alone in Australia, in the last dozen or so years. There was the Lint Cafe siege and there's what's happened at Bondi, Westfield. There may have been other things that have happened. We can go back to 1996 and Port Arthur. I guess my point is there are so few of these kinds of things that happen in this country. It is a beautifully, wonderfully, phenomenally safe country, and our kids need to know that. They've been to the shops so many times. Nothing like that has ever happened to them. This is the only time that we've heard of it happening. Let's get back out there. Let's get back on the horse. Avoidance reinforces anxiety. And so I would be really, really keen to, number one, help them to avoid the news completely, because then there won't be anxiety. But if they've seen it, get them back into life as soon as you can. Jump on the bike, go for a ride, go to the park, go to places where you know that you can feel safe, and get back into life.
Our second question comes from Kayleen. We love receiving your questions. And if you've got one for us,
go to happyfamilies.com.au. We've got a button that you can push, and then you just talk to us.
Button,
I love the button. And people are starting to use it, but I want everyone to use it. It's so good. Push the button, start talking, tell us what's on your mind, and we will do our best to answer your questions.
Kayleen sent us an email and she said,
she didn't use the button.
She said, my family is in struggle town in a big way. I've heard you and I'm working hard on connecting, getting curious and all that stuff. But what are we supposed to do when we are consistently met with, I don't know, nothing, I don't want to? Usually after being ignored when making polite, respectful requests, and then being yelled at when you're holding the boundary or expectation. We simply can't let them play indefinitely when it's bedtime. We can't let them never brush their teeth, hit one another, call each other names, or speak to one another like they're dirt under one another's feet. How do we work with this? We're exhausted and every day is a battle lately.
Kayleen added some context as well, Kylie. She said that they've got 3 kids at home, 6, 8 and 14, and there's a lot of neurodivergence in the family, really wanting everyone to feel happier and respected and considered, but you can hear how challenging this is. So I'm hearing Kayleen's plea, and there are a couple of things that stand out to me. First off, timing is everything. When we try to talk to our children and they're emotional, we tend to get responses like, I don't know, and nothing. And I don't want to. Our timing matters enormously. Now, I know that's not really the crux of what Kayleen's asking, but I wanted to highlight that because if the kids are a bit emotional, if they're really engaged in what they're doing, we're not going to be able to have productive and effective conversations with them. We're going to get reactions that are uncomfortable and difficult and annoying and frustrating and often inflammatory. High emotions, low intelligence. Sometimes you do just have to deal with it in the moment, but what I would encourage where possible is deal with challenges at appropriate times, at good times, at times where everybody's in the mood for having a conversation and is available to talk rather than in the moment.
When I'm reading this, I may have this wrong, but I kind of feel like there is this tendency to want to be this gentle, loving parent and not raise our voices. And we feel like the only way we can do that when our kids push back is to acquiesce and let them keep going. But what happens when in the moment we're stuck with a kid who keeps hurting their sibling and we're trying our best to be respectful and be kind and help? How do we actually deal with things in the moment? Because you're saying timing matters and we can't always have these beautiful, thought-provoking conversations with our kids.
Tell me about your feelings. Yeah.
So what happens in the moment?
In the moment, I think we need to remember that sometimes there's just no such thing as perfect. I mean, every now and again, I'll tell a story where I've nailed it or you've nailed it or another parent has just gotten this so right. But most of the time, perfect doesn't exist. And the more we push for perfect, the more frustrated we will be at ourselves and also at our children for ruining our otherwise perfect and well-planned lives. We sometimes just have to do what we have to do to get kids out of trouble or there are times where I had to pick up a child and literally put them over my shoulder and carry them out of the shops or carry them out of the park or carry them out of wherever it is that their cousin's house because they were refusing to leave. And I want to be kind. I want to be really gentle. I want to be compassionate with my children. But sometimes they just have to get in the car. Or sometimes they do just have to go to bed. It doesn't ever feel good to be overly controlling and forceful, but sometimes we need to do that. We want to do it as gently as we can. We want to do it as softly and considerately and compassionately as we can. But sometimes we just need a result. And in that case, we have to take it. The thing is, though, those instances are rare. They are vanishingly small if we can set things up ahead of time and be proactive. And that's probably where I'd like to focus. You and I have spoken many, many times about how rather than addressing things in the moment, we'll address things on the weekend. We sit down and have our family meeting on a Sunday, and we say to the kids, what's gone well this week? Let's celebrate our successes. What hasn't gone well? Oh, yeah, there's been a lot of this happening, or there's been a lot of that happening. And it's a non-targeted way to address the challenges in the family and then make plans. All right, what's one thing we're going to work on this week so that we can make our family feel better? Get everyone aligned, everyone on the same page, and put together a plan. Yeah, we're going to work on being kinder. Okay, what are 2 or 3 strategies that we can implement to get this right?
Well, I just want to add some clarity because you've acknowledged that we don't deal with things in the moment.
Yeah.
And the reality is that all of those situations need to be dealt with in the moment, but the conversations where learning takes place don't happen in those moments.
What a great way to say it. Yeah, yeah. Don't get rational in the moment. Just deal with things.
So one of the things that I absolutely love about our family meetings is it's actually, in some ways, the kids are running the conversation. It's not you and I sitting up the front of the room and saying, okay, here's what I've seen, kids. This is what we're upset about this week. This is what hasn't gone well. You didn't do this and you didn't do that. Yeah. There is none of that. We sit down and we actually ask the kids, we're the last ones to speak in that conversation. We ask the kids what they have seen has gone really well. We celebrate the successes and we're able to do that together. Then when we ask them what didn't go well, it's them who leads the conversation. Yes. They are the ones who recognise and know that things don't feel great when we're at each other. And there is an absolute acknowledgement that they take part in that process.
To the extent that we can as well, we do have treats during this conversation. Like this family meeting is meant to be an easy, fun conversation about helping our family to function better. And so we do everything we can in that meeting to help the kids want to be there and enjoy the opportunity that they have a voice in the way the family operates.
And then when it comes to that third question, what are we going to focus on this week? It's the kids. They look at the list. They see what's gone wrong during the week or what hasn't gone well, and they're the ones who want to rectify it. We haven't been really kind to each other this week and our home hasn't felt great. I think that is where the power comes from having those meetings.
So, Kayleen, what I would say is when the kids are ignoring you, or when the kids say, I don't know, or when the kids say nothing, as a parent, it's your job to hold lines, hold boundaries, be considerate, consider timing, consider your children's emotional state, look at whether they've got food in their belly, how tired they are, all those sorts of things, and respond accordingly. But results are necessary. When it's bedtime, it's bedtime. So work out what needs to happen. Or if the kids are calling each other names, intervene, but do it as gently as you can, and then kick it down the road. And on Sunday, you have that family meeting. What went well? What didn't? What can we work on? And bit by bit, things improve. And then you backslide, and then they improve. And then you backslide, and then they improve. That's family life.
And that's, again, where the power comes in those regular family meetings because there's accountability. Everyone's held to a level of accountability.
So, Kayleen, we really hope that helps to answer those questions that you have. Good luck. Look, parenting life, family life, it is messy. It really is challenging, but hopefully those principles will be useful for you. If you have questions for us, please jump onto happyfamilies.com.au. Use the button. Talk to us. Let us know what's on your mind. The more prepared you are with your question, the easier it will be for us to put you on the podcast and answer your questions to make your family function better. Tomorrow, a really important conversation about pregnancy and infant loss. And then on Thursday, This Week in Parenting, our favourite podcast ever. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rawn from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. To make your family happier, please visit happyfamilies.com.au for all the resources you need for a flourishing family.